are coming on the air with millions of people under these intense weather threats with dangerous hail and a lot of wind expected after devastating tornadoes in the Midwest, plus a heat wave on the way. It's going to get sticky. We are live in the region with that. Plus, breaking in just the last couple of hours, big news here. A jury says the company you kind of basically have to go through if you want a ticket to anything live is an illegal monopoly. So is this the end of Live Nation and Ticketmaster together? And what does it mean for the price you pay? We've got that in just a sec. Plus, another hot streak for stocks. The new record highs today as Wall Street shrugs off the war with Iran. Then the Grinch behind a huge Santa con in New York. Why the FBI is accusing the organizer of this big pre-Christmas party of stuffing his own stocking instead of remembering the reason for the season. Then how a popular brand is trading shoes for data centers. Wall Street loves it, but what does Allbirds know about AI? We're going to break that down coming up a little bit later on in the show. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and we are coming on the air with some 50 million people facing severe weather everywhere from Texas to the Northeast. It's not just hail and wind. It's not just tornadoes. It's a heat wave on the way as well. Let me show you some of what we've seen coming into us already here. Look at this. You're seeing huge chunks of hail already starting to come down in Iowa. People there are under a thunderstorm watch. Chaos on the roads. You had cars in Wisconsin. Look at that. That guy looked up to the headlights in water, trapped in floods. This is after all these tornadoes we've seen in the Midwest over the last couple of days, back-to-back nights of it. And then the aftermath, power lines down, houses ripped up, trees ripped out. We've got team coverage tonight. Bill Cairns has the forecast and what's ahead for the heat. But I want to start with Shaq Brewster, who is in Kansas for us. What's it like on the ground, Shaq?
Well, Hallie, I think you see some of the devastation and destruction behind me. This is the power of the tornadoes that we saw on Monday night. You see the camper completely turned over back there. The storage containers just look like a pile of metal. And then look around here. You just see the debris. This entire structure just completely gone. And, you know, the thing is right now we are under a tornado watch, which essentially means the conditions would make it that a tornado is possible. We're safe. There's a little bit of rain right now. But just imagine what a severe thunderstorm could do if this stuff starts flying around. And that's why you have folks doing what they can to clean stuff up. But I'll tell you, a lot of conversations I've been having with folks here, Hallie, they're still very positive despite the destruction and devastation that you're seeing here. I want you to listen to one of the exchanges I had earlier this afternoon.
Now my camper is upside down right over here.
That's it right there.
Right there, totally destroyed. It'll get hauled out of here and I'll buy another one. I mean, it's replaceable, you know, family's not.
Yeah, that sentiment is something that I've heard over and over again, despite the material loss that people have suffered with here, their storage units and other areas that we've been, their actual homes. They still are relieved that there was no death, that there were no serious injuries reported, at least with this outbreak of tornadoes, as we watch yet another round of severe weather moving through the Midwest, Hallie.
Shaq Brewster live for us there in Kansas. Shaq, thank you. Let me bring in Bill Cairns now. Tornadoes, wind, hail, oh my, plus the heat that is on the way, especially for the Northeast. It really extreme this early in the year.
Yeah, and let's add record flooding, Michigan and Wisconsin in certain areas, too. So let's get to all of it. So now we're starting our event for this evening. We have our tornado watches that have been issued. Just the edge of Oklahoma, so really the eastern half of Oklahoma, this area here where Kansas meets Missouri and Oklahoma. And then as we go through Kansas City, you're in this too, Des Moines over to the Quad Cities. Those are the areas of greatest risk of seeing scattered tornadoes. We do not think this is going to be an outbreak of tornadoes. We do think we're going to have a lot of storms with very large hail and gusty winds that can do damage. We've been watching this storm that just went through the Cleveland area. Still a severe thunderstorm warning with this. And then new storms by Sandusky. So these are coming right along Interstate 80 here. Looks like Cleveland will probably get 2 rounds of these storms. This storm has been producing some pretty large hail and 60-mile-per-hour winds. And that's about to cross Interstate 271 here. So we'll watch that. So this is the area that we're just talked about for the rest of this evening, and Chicago later tonight. I think you're going to get a little break for the next couple hours. You could have another round of storms. I'm going to fast forward past tomorrow because tomorrow we kind of get a little bit of a break. Then Friday, these same areas that we're watching today, you're already under an enhanced risk. This has all the hallmarks of being a tornado outbreak possible Friday afternoon and evening. So keep that in mind for your plans. And I mentioned the flooding. These purple dots show you where major flooding is expected. A couple areas, like Portage, Wisconsin. It's protected by a 100-year-old sand levee. It was last tested back in 2008 and 2010. it had breaches both times. So they're very nervous. They're expecting it to be even higher than when they had those breaches about 15, 16 years ago. So that's a story to watch. And for obvious reasons, storm after storm, day after day of heavy rain. We have flood watches that are up for much of Michigan, northern Indiana, Wisconsin, portions of upper Michigan too. And then you mentioned the heat. We just hit 90 degrees for the first time this year in New York City and Central Park. I know we're above 90 in Washington, D.C. So, yeah, as you mentioned, Hallie, I'm going to fast forward for you to Monday and just to tell you that you're probably going to be wearing a coat, maybe even a heavier coat. So just don't get too used to this. This is what we call fool's spring.
Don't worry, I know, but we're still going to have amazing allergies as well, and the pollen's going to crush. So,
yes,
get it all. Bill Cairns, plenty for you to watch. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Listen, we got some big breaking news tonight. This huge ruling against Live Nation, with a federal jury finding that they have basically been operating as an illegal monopoly, overcharging fans who bought via Ticketmaster tickets to various shows. This is a decision that could have a huge impact on concerts, on really any live entertainment. It could maybe even mean the breakup of Live Nation and Ticketmaster, which it owns. Now, Live Nation denies ever acting as a monopoly. They haven't put out a statement on the ruling yet. We're watching for it. We have heard from an attorney for the states who told our team outside court, it's a great day for antitrust law. It's a great day for consumers. So I have to tell you that it's more expensive than ever to get a concert ticket. 2024, the average was like $135, according to Pollstar. $25 in 1996. Now, that was a lifetime ago, but still. We've got team coverage tonight. Our legal analyst, Misty Maris, is standing by to break down what this means. But I want to start with Hallie Canal. What's interesting here is that the jury found Ticketmaster overcharged customers by $1.72, $1.72 for each ticket, which sounds like not much. But you add it up, it's going to have a big impact potentially financially, legally, operationally for Live Nation.
Yeah, so $1.72. Now, this ultimately is the money that will be paid out on a per-ticket basis to the states, essentially making them whole. But we will see additional remedies, damages, possibly more monetary damages down the line, and that will come from the U.S. District Judge at a later hearing. But yeah, I mean, this is a huge deal. We saw that DOJ settlement last month, and that really set the floor when it comes to what we could see remedy-wise in this particular case. Remember, in the DOJ settlement, Live Nation and therefore its ticketing company, Ticketmaster, had to agree to certain changes to its business. That included capping service fees at 15%, divesting 13 out of 240 Live Nation-owned theaters, as well as reserving 50% of tickets for non-exclusive contracts. So that is the floor. We could see a lot more to come here. We are starting to hear from multiple state AGs. I'm going to read a statement from Letitia James. She's the New York Attorney General. She said in part, "This is a landmark victory in our ongoing work to protect our economy and New Yorkers' wallets from harmful monopolies." But this was a very complicated, very dense case here. But ultimately, the jury finding that Live Nation participated in these monopolistic tendencies within the context of the Live Nation, the live entertainment industry.
We've talked a lot about Ticketmaster and the various issues, that people have had with them over the years. This isn't, just to be clear, this isn't like about one specific show that the state attorney general brought this. This was about various concert venues, right, where these states felt like people were being overcharged, that a monopoly was being, implemented.
Yes, this is really about competition. Is Live Nation a monopoly? It wasn't necessarily about the high ticket prices that we see, which is a bit of a disappointment to fans, because any changes that we do see, that's not going to lead to immediate lower prices overnight.
Okay.
Also, the fact that we have this unregulated Wild West secondary resale ticket market, that's usually the culprit of these higher fees. So we'll have to see what the remedies are and how that could potentially lead to more changes down the line.
Hallie Canal, thank you much. Teeing us nicely from Misty Maris, who's got the legal perspective. Misty, you heard Hallie there say, this isn't going to lead to lower ticket prices for people overnight. Will it ever lead to lower ticket prices for people, or is that not what this is?
Well, this isn't a monopoly case. And so the jury has determined that Live Nation and Ticketmaster are actually operating illegally. They're illegal monopolies. So whatever the remedy is, which the judge will ultimately decide, and could be as severe as actually breaking up the companies, in theory, would open up and pave the way for the competitive landscape to change. Ticketmaster, Live Nation, they're bigger than all of the other companies by a significant amount. But the next step, Hallie, you're definitely going to see Live Nation, Ticketmaster appealing this verdict. So this could really be jammed up in that appellate process for a significant period of time while that DOJ consent decree goes into effect.
You talk about the remedy that the judge could impose here. One of them, it sounds like kind of the nuclear option, is splitting up Live Nation, making them spin off Ticketmaster. Is there like an option that's one degree less worse for Live Nation, if you will? Like, what are the other options on the table?
Absolutely, Hallie. So it could be anything from monetary penalties all the way up to splitting up the companies or anything in between. It could be forcing Live Nation, Ticketmaster to divest certain assets that they have, like those amphitheaters that we heard about during the trial. It could also be significant changes to business practices. The whole idea is to basically repair what the jury has found, that this is a monopoly that stifles competition. So the judge can impose court-ordered requirements. So that's the important piece here. Court-ordered requirements in order to alleviate that and to stop the monopolistic practices. So there's a whole vast array of remedies that the court could impose, and that's going to happen in an upcoming hearing.
All right, Misty Maris, keep us posted on that one. Big news tonight. Appreciate you. Thank you. Also big news tonight, the markets. Wow. Going gangbusters. Look at this, where things closed in just the last hour or so. The Dow's down a little bit, but look at the S&P and the NASDAQ up just about 1% for the S&P, a little bit more than that for NASDAQ. Huge for them, all-time highs. They've never been this high before. A big turn for the markets, especially as war with Iran keeps energy prices up. Gas is still about $4 a gallon. Christine Romans is joining us now. 401ks, I know financial experts say just sit and let them ride. However, if there's a day to check them, maybe today's the day. This is a big deal, right? Why this rally now?
You know, look, we all say stay invested through the headlines, through the drama, through the chaos. Just stay invested because companies learn to adapt. Companies figure out whatever these headwinds are, and Wall Street reflects how well these companies are making money. You've got the stock market back up here to record highs in two of the major indices, in the S&P and the NASDAQ. They're higher for the year. So that's good news for anybody who stayed invested. So that's amazing. Look at the rebound for the S&P 500 from those March 30 lows. That's even more significant than the rebound that it had after. Remember Liberation Day last year, those big tariffs, all the markets tanked, and then the president sort of took his foot off the gas, and then they rallied and roared back. This is even more dramatic than that. Split screen, though, Hallie, are gas prices. Gas prices are still 38% higher than they were when the war began with Iran. And I talked to Kevin Hassett about yesterday. I asked him, like, what is your message to the American people who may see the stock market recovering, but they're paying more at the pump every single week when they fill up? This is what he told me.
We're very sensitive to the fact that gas prices are higher. They've gone from 3-ish to 4-ish on average in the country, and that's something that we're all in on addressing by doing things like releasing the strategic reserve and increasing production in Venezuela and in the U.S. and so on.
It's really interesting. So you have, again, this split screen where you have a stock market that seems to be doing well, that has recovered. So Wall Street doing better than I think Main Street would say that they feel here.
Christine Romans covering all things economy, always covering the news. And today, in the news, making headlines of your own. We are so excited for you because guess what? Christine's taken over 2 hours right here on NBC News Now, gang, 10 a.m. Eastern. Christine, we are so excited for you. Cannot wait until the new show starts. Do you have a name yet? What is it?
No, I was going to call it News Nerd Now, but I was told that wouldn't be appropriate.
But I love that. I'm so thrilled for you. We're so excited. You're such a big part of the family here on Now. And
Thank you.
We're thrilled for you. So sending lots of love. Thanks, Christine. Appreciate you. Listen, you heard Christine talk about the markets, the impact, obviously, as we're in the midst of this ceasefire, the war with Iran. Let's get more into that because you got the White House tonight waving off reports that the president wants to extend the ceasefire as the U.S. is trying to come to some kind of a deal with Iran. It's kind of the contrary. Apparently, the president wants this whole thing wrapped up by the time King Charles visits the U.S., according to a conversation he had with our partners over at Sky News. Not clear how the war is tied to that directly, but circle April 27th on the calendar. That is when the king will be in town. Right now, the focus for much of the Trump administration appears to be on this blockade of Iranian ports in the Strait of Hormuz. A U.S. official tells NBC the Navy has turned around 9 ships in the last 48 hours, with CENTCOM issuing this warning. Listen to this, to boats that are trying to break the blockade.
Turn around and prepare to be boarded. If you do not comply with this blockade, we will use force. The whole of the United States Navy is ready to force compliance.
Keir Simmons is live for us tonight in the region. He's in Riyadh. And listen, let's talk about it because you've got Pakistani officials in Tehran, presumably to try to move along any potential talks. What do we know?
Yeah, Pakistani officials in Tehran and Pakistani officials here in Riyadh, they are fanning out across the region to try to get a deal done, to try to move forward with diplomacy. It's interesting listening to Christine talk about how the markets really, I would say, are acting as if this war is over, whereas here in the region, it feels like we're in a new phase. And I don't mean to say that necessarily we're going to go back to full-blown conflict, the kind of thing we've seen, or I've been here in recent weeks, where, you know, shelter-in-place alarms are going off and missiles were arriving. No, perhaps not that. But as you mentioned, right now, the Strait of Hormuz is still blocked, not just blocked by the Iranians, but also blocked by the US. It's sort of a game of chicken. And the game of chicken looks like this. Can the Iranians be forced to suffer economically to such an extent that they are prepared to compromise before the world economy starts to really get hit by the fact that oil and petrochemicals and gas shipments and cargo still isn't passing through the Strait of Hormuz, albeit, for example, that they are finding ways around it here in Saudi Arabia, for example, a pipeline carrying 7 million barrels of oil per day is fully working after it was attacked. So it's complicated. The diplomacy is complicated. Two sides to this, really, Hallie. On the one hand, I think both the Iranians and the US want this to be done, and that's good for the talks. On the other hand, there are so many hurdles. And with President Trump talking about that there will be talks in the coming days, we're not hearing the Iranians say that. And I think the simple question of when the talks might happen is part of this very, very tense negotiation.
Keir Simmons live for us there in Riyadh, watching it all. Keir, thank you for being there, and thank you for those updates. Back here at home tonight, you've got President Trump perhaps giving new life to that classic old saw that if at first you don't succeed at attacking the Pope, try again. Yes, the president is reigniting his papal fight, again slamming Pope Leo overnight by defending the war with Iran, again saying the regime cannot have nuclear weapons. And Republicans on Capitol Hill, some of whom didn't really love the first round of the president v. the Pope, they're having some thoughts about round 2, like the Senate Majority Leader who says everybody needs to just stay in their lanes.
I'd stay focused on the administration, on the economic issues, the pocketbook issues that I think most Americans care about. And let the church be the church.
Okay, so remember, the Pope, if you're a Catholic, is infallible on matters of doctrine, somebody who they see as unable to sin, whose job it is to speak on morality. But Vice President J.D. Vance, who converted to Catholicism in 2019, says he thinks the Pope may need to brush up on some of the more godly matters.
In the same way that it's important for the Vice President of the United States to be careful when I talk about matters of public policy, I think it's very, very important for the Pope to be careful when he talks about matters of theology.
Now, for his part, it appears the Pope is standing by his anti-war remarks. He's not talking about President Trump, but he is telling followers, he's in Algeria, that, I'm quoting here, God's heart is torn apart by wars, violence, injustice, and lies, but our Father's heart is not with the wicked, the arrogant, or the proud. Let me bring in Kelly O'Donnell, who is live for us at the White House. There's a lot to this, Kelly, right? I mean, we talked about this a couple of days ago when the president, put out that AI picture of him, looked to be Jesus. The president says he was a doctor. People were had some thoughts about the fact that he was going after the Pope. He's got a lot of Catholics in his administration. What's up with this? Why now? Is he? Do we have any reporting that he's personally upset by the way the Pope has been denouncing war? Help us.
Well, this is the ultimate church versus state kind of conflict, where it is a long history of presidents viewing a pope as a figure that is a global figure and obviously a moral leader, as are other leaders of other faiths in the world. And typically, there is no attempt to try to challenge or quibble with. Obviously, President Trump does many things differently, and he is certainly engaged on this. The Pope's role, of course, is to talk about the gospel, talk about moral points of view, and to lead his church. He has said it's not personal. It is not about politics. He is trying to engage on larger issues. When the vice president gives that sort of comparison of, as vice president, must be careful on public policy, the Pope should be careful on theology, implicit in that is the notion that the vice presidency and the head of the global Catholic Church are somehow parallel. They're just in different worlds. So this has created a lot of interest, a lot of concern. One does not need to be Catholic to have an opinion on this. Many people are looking at it and wondering why the president is sort of provoking a clash where there need not be one. The president does maintain that he believes that the war is justified, and on matters of immigration, for example, he believes the Pope's comments have interfered with what he has tried to do. It has spread to the Speaker of the House, who also commented today when asked by reporters to weigh in on all of this.
A pontiff or any religious leader can say anything they want, but obviously if you wade into political waters, I think you should expect some political response, and I think the Pope's received some of that.
So Speaker Johnson sort of just describing the situation as Pope Leo has spoken to reporters, including our colleague Claudio Lavagna, saying that he is not about criticizing any one individual, but talking about what he believes God is calling people to do. So it is really an eye of the beholder moment as our viewers can discern what they make of this and how important they think it is to have the world of politics and in kind of a larger conversation clash in this way.
As you say, Kelly, church and state, it is certainly a matter of that. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. It's good to see you on the North Lawn there. We've got to get to some breaking news into us. And quite literally, I want to say the last 10, 11 minutes or so, a judge in Texas has now ruled that parts of Camp Mystic hit by those devastating floods have to stay closed. Now, the judge, and again, we're working through this here, but the judge says this camp can't fix any buildings or alter any of the land until an investigation is complete. This is all part of a lawsuit brought by the parents of an 8-year-old camper whose body still has not been found. Now, the attorneys say that the camp was not prepared for flooding and made mistakes that cost lives. Listen.
If we had taken one person who was not a counselor and gotten on a walkie-talkie or a loudspeaker at any point between 2:20 and 3:15 a.m. and said, we need to go to higher ground, go to specific cabins, and evacuate the counselors and campers. There were enough able-bodied people there to follow such an order. True?
Yes, sir.
That order was never given, correct?
Correct.
And 27 girls died because of that failure, correct?
Yes, sir.
Morgan Chesky has been following this story. Obviously, Morgan, remember you being covering Camp Mystic, right near your hometown when it happened. Now we've got this ruling from a judge. Tell us what else this judge said, what else we heard. We heard a little bit from the hearing, but one of several lawsuits here.
Right. This lawsuit, Hallie, was filed by the parents of Seal Stewart. She is the lone camper who passed away in that flood, who his body has yet to be recovered here. This lawsuit was filed back in February, and at issue, this hearing that's been the better part of the past 3 days has been discussing this TRO, this restraining order. And the judge, in her decision that she announced just a few minutes ago, said that the Guadalupe portion of Camp Mystic, where the flood struck, where the majority of that devastation took place, where those young girls lost their lives, must remain sealed off pending the end of this ongoing investigation. We know that regarding this investigation, Hallie, there are kind of multiple parties looking into what took place in the early morning hours of July 4th. You have the state legislator that has had a joint committee looking into this. We also know that the state agency that issues camp permits has enlisted the help of the Texas Rangers to look into certain aspects of how Camp Mystic operated. Those are two separate things that are continuing to move forward, and as such, that judge is saying that the Guadalupe part of Mystic has to remain closed down. They cannot alter the land. They cannot renovate any of those buildings there until those investigations are complete. I should note here, Hallie, that on the footprint of Camp Mystic, You have the Guadalupe camp, and you have Camp Mystic Cypress Lake. That's on higher ground and was not impacted by the flood. That Cypress Lake location remains open. More than 800 girls have already had their families pay deposits to attend Cypress Lake here in about 6 weeks' time. However, the state has not issued Camp Mystic their permit to operate 2026.
Okay.
That's still pending. So we have now 6 weeks and counting to figure out if Cypress Lake can even operate from a state standpoint. And when asked on the stand today about what took place in the early morning hours, I want you to hear just a little bit more of what night watchman Glenn Junkie had to say. Take a listen.
We did everything we could do with the amount of time we had.
Well, you and I aren't going to argue with one another.
I'm not arguing.
I understand that, and I appreciate what you did. So let's go through it, all right? But it is not true that y'all did everything you could do prior to 3 a.m., is it?
I disagree.
Okay.
And again, Hallie, this hearing was from that lawsuit filed by Seal Steward's parents, one of several that has been filed against Camp Mystic. There's discussion right now by the judge about putting those cases together, which would certainly change kind of the legal trajectory of what we're seeing here. Much more to come on that. We know that more hearings are slated for May in this ongoing issue that's left so many people heartbroken. Hallie.
It's been such a nightmare. Can I ask you, you mentioned that 6 weeks from now is when the Cypress Lake portion of Camp Mystic was set at least to reopen in the eyes of the camp and these parents who put down deposits. If the state doesn't issue permits, do we know if there's some sort of a deadline for that? Like, in other words, when will people in Texas know if that camp is going to operate or not this summer?
If the state does not issue a permit for Cypress Lake, we're essentially entering a crunch time. I don't know if there is a specific day, but Mystic at some point will have to tell those parents that they cannot legally operate and shut that portion of the camp down temporarily as well. Hallie.
Morgan Chesky live for us with all of those brand new developments in just the last few minutes. Morgan, thank you for the scramble. We appreciate you watching that hearing. Thank you. Also new tonight in brand new, very rare public comments, we are hearing from the new owner of Jeffrey Epstein's ranch in New Mexico, laying out how he sees its future. You know this ranch. It's called Zorro. We used to be called Zorro. And it's where multiple survivors say Epstein assaulted them. The new owner is a real estate developer named Don Huffines. By the way, he's running on the Republican ticket to serve as comptroller in Texas. He wants to turn the ranch, this is about 7,500 acres, into a Christian retreat. The Texas Tribune asking Huffines about the property. Listen.
Have the authorities asked to visit the ranch? Would you make it available to them if they did?
Of course. Of course we would. Absolutely, 100%, and I have. No one ever asked to come out there. We asked people to come out. They assured me that they didn't need to. The Attorney General's office is out there and done their investigations, and I wasn't there, but it's my understanding they haven't found anything.
Let me bring in Ryan Nobles, who's joining us now. This is a really interesting response from Don Huffines there, and I want to explain to people why that is. We know, based on our reporting, that the state of New Mexico just recently, this spring, Don Huffines did give them permission to go out and search the ranch. He said, you heard him there, and he said, yes, they searched. He said they assured me they didn't need to search. Who's the they? Is that the feds? Do you have any indication that the federal Department of Justice told him they didn't need to go out and search what used to be Zorro?
Well, we know that the main entity that's been investigating the Zorro Ranch has been the New Mexico Department of Justice. They created this Truth Commission. They have a $2.5 million budget to expressly investigate this part of the Epstein investigation. We have no evidence that the federal Department of Justice has made any effort to go to the Zorro Ranch to investigate any of the claims that have been made by some of the accusers and the survivors of that situation. You know, the Zorro Ranch is one of these interesting aspects of the Epstein investigation, which you know, Hallie. Yeah. The conspiracy theories run wild about what potentially happened there. There are some people that suggest perhaps there could be bodies buried somewhere on the ranch, that could be some sort of
tip turned over to the FBI about exactly that came in unsubstantiated, obviously.
Right, and there's also claims that there was some sort of various illicit activities that were taking place there. Is there any evidence of those illicit activities? So it is not clear, and Huffine, it seems to kind of just dismiss this as not a real thing. We don't know who's been there, what they found, what they've looked for, and whether or not all that work is done.
No timeline on we just had the New Mexico Attorney General on this show yesterday, actually. We asked him about this, and he said that we don't really have a timeline at this point. They're working on the investigation. They hope that the DOJ turns over some of the records they're looking for, those unredacted documents. Also interesting here, the road leading into the ranch has been renamed. It's now called San Rafael, right? Named after the saint of healing. Huffines has talked about this because he wants to turn this property into a Christian retreat.
Right.
He said, he posted online that he wants this place of darkness to become a place of light. I think that in my conversations with survivors, with those related to the investigations, I think there's some skepticism that it could ever be a place of healing. But Huffines seems pretty committed to this, he said today, or when he talked to the Tribune.
Yeah, right. And he is bound and determined to turn this into something positive and something good. Listen to how he referred to it today during this talk.
We decided to buy it and turn a place of darkness into a place of light. I was converting that ranch into a Christian retreat, and we had a lot of ideas to do it and how to do it, and so that's ongoing, and that's what I'm going to do.
So exactly how he plans to manifest this dream he has for it, how the survivors are going to be impacted by that, how it affects the investigation, Hallie, I think is important. Are there things that need to be preserved? He's not really answered any of those questions with any degree of specificity.
Ryan Nobles, thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. Still ahead for us tonight, the husband of the missing American mom in the Bahamas is leaving that country while his attorney is telling us he had to. Plus, the man suspected of stealing Christmas, in the words of the feds, with SantaCon, being accused of a con himself. The new fraud allegations you're going to want to hear about next. We are learning tonight New York City's beloved SantaCon may actually be a total con after the FBI arrested its organizer for fraud today. You know SantaCon, right? Every year when somebody does some sort of thing on it, like all these people dressed up like Santa, they take over in New York right before Christmas to raise money for charity. But here's what federal prosecutors say the organizer actually spent a bunch of the money on instead of charity: renovating his lake house, concert tickets, going on very nice vacations, eating very nice meals, driving a very nice car, all while claiming he got no compensation for running the charity event. The FBI says he allegedly, in their words, stole Christmas from tens of thousands of people and deprived local charities of more than $1 million. He faces up to 20 years in prison if convicted. Tom Winter joins us now. I mean, the feds didn't say, the word Grinch, but they certainly implied it. How did this person get away with this for so long? It's not like SantaCon is new to the scene.
Well, some members in law enforcement have used the word Grinch today, Hallie. And yes, this has been going on for some time. Cracks in the SantaCon facade, if you will, of the charitable portion of this program. And you're going to continue to look at the images on screen of the event. Those started to appear approximately 2.5 years ago when a local publication here in New York, Gothamist, started to ask some questions about a couple of holding companies where this money apparently went to. And it's not an insignificant amount. We can take a look at it now. The total amount that's been raised, $2.7 in total, $2 million in ticket sales, and then as well as charitable donations that come from some of the bars that are involved in this. It is effectively a bar crawl, Hallie. What was that spent toward? Well, according to the indictment, the allegations are $124,000 toward the lease of a luxury Manhattan apartments, over $10,000 a month on average, $100,000 investment into a boutique resort in Costa Rica that was founded by a personal friend, a $3,000 birthday dinner at a Michelin-starred restaurant in New York City, and then that lake house you referenced, $365,000 in donations. Now, Hallie, this is certainly getting a lot of attention because it involves Christmas, it involves charity. Let's be totally transparent today. There is another side of SantaCon, which are the acts that take place on that day, and the costumes. It's been referred to as Halloween in December to describe fully some of the costumes that would appear that day would threaten my employment. And, of course, it's a nightmare for parents who have to avoid swaths of the city so we don't have to answer questions of data. How come there's so many Santa Clauses on the sidewalk, and why are so many of them throwing up into the sewers? So that's a bit of the side note of SantaCon. It's been a bit of a scourge. Some people have had their issues with it, to say the least. And most people did not know that this is a charitable event. I've gotten lots of feedback on social media today, people that had no idea this involved charity at all. They just thought it was a great way to spend time with friends on a Saturday afternoon before Christmas.
It's just so interesting. Tom Winter, thanks for being all over everything, because it's all your beat. Appreciate you. Thank you. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, the husband of that missing woman in the Bahamas has left the country, according to his attorney, who tells NBC News he's going back to the States for a family emergency. Remember, he was just released from police custody after being questioned in connection to his wife's disappearance. Lynette Hooker was reportedly swept out to sea there. She went overboard, according to her husband. Now, his attorney says he'll be back in the Bahamas, but she didn't say exactly when. Number 2, in just the last couple of hours, 2 suspects in that attempted bombing outside Gracie Mansion have pleaded not guilty. Prosecutors accused those men of throwing an explosive during protests outside the mayor's home in New York. That device never went off. Both men face multiple charges, including supporting a terrorist organization. They'll be back in court in June. Number 3, Ye, the artist formerly known as Kanye, says he's postponing an upcoming show in France after leaders there threatened to ban him from entering the country, saying he's not welcome. If this is giving you deja vu, yeah, that's because the UK kind of just did the same thing. He was supposed to headline a big music festival there in the UK until that was canceled when the British government banned Ye because of his history of anti-Semitic comments. West says he understands, Kanye says he understands it takes time to make amends for his past remarks. Number 4, pretty scary moment caught on camera here. People in Arizona, look, barely stopping this toddler from running out into traffic. There goes that kiddo, just steps away from the street. People run up to him, to the child. Officials say they bolted away from their parents. One rescuer says he's just grateful he was in the right place at the right time. Number 5, new star ready for the spotlight right here in Washington. Look at this. The first Asian elephant calf at the zoo in 25 years. Lim Mai, Vietnamese for spirit blossom. Her keepers call her sassy and rambunctious and playful. Everybody, I can tell you, people in D.C. are so psyched. We love the pandas. We've got our pandas, but now we have a little baby elephant. She's going to make her debut to the public next week. Still ahead for us tonight, the hours-long push to try to save a group of trapped hikers. We've got that full video. Plus, the warning to the folks heard making animal noises over emergency air traffic radio here in D.C. We've got that. The meowing. There's your spoiler in just a moment. Tonight, disturbing pictures out of Turkey after a second school shooting there in just 2 days left 9 people dead and more than a dozen hurt. You see some of the scene here, students jumping out of the windows from this middle school. Just horrific. We know that the attacker, according to officials, was 14 and killed 1 teacher and 8 other students before dying by suicide, according to officials. Here's some of what it looked like outside of school. Parents running around, ambulances trying to drive through crowds. It's just 24 hours after a different young shooter opened fire at another school in that area, killing 16 people. This is very rare in Turkey. There has never been one this deadly, let alone 2 in 1 week. Raf Sanchez is covering this for us tonight. What else do we know from officials about this?
So, Hallie, one of the big questions in Turkey is how did today's shooter get those guns? Turkey, like most countries outside the United States, pretty strict gun control rules. We are now learning that the shooter's father is a former police officer, and it does appear that the shooter took weapons from his collection of firearms. Authorities are saying this massacre was carried out using 5 guns and 7 magazines, so a pretty formidable arsenal there. This 14 years old, going into the school, opening fire on his classmates, as you said, killing 8 students and 1 teacher. This is officially the worst school massacre in Turkish history. And the big question, Hallie, is there any connection between yesterday's shooting, which took place about 130 miles away, about 3 hours drive? You can see those 2 areas on your screen there. At this point, authorities are not saying that they have detected any connection between these 2 shooters. But as we know, in the U.S., there can sometimes be copycat attacks that follow on from previous ones. In both cases, the killers appear to have shot themselves over the course of carrying out these attacks. Today's massacre, according to the Turkish Interior Ministry, was a personal attack, they are saying. It does not appear to have been an act of terrorism. And you can just see the terror there on your screen, kids jumping out of second-story windows, trying to get away as those gunshots were ringing out at that middle school in southern Turkey. Hallie.
Raf Sanchez, thank you very much. NBC News covers hundreds of stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going on in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our Western Bureau, take a look here. First responders rescuing climbers stuck on a mountain in Colorado. Officials say they received reports the group had to stop in the middle of the climb. After losing their route when it got too dark, they apparently didn't have headlamps to help them out when the night fell. The rescue operation took nearly 4 hours, but the good news is everybody's okay. Also out of our Western Bureau, nearly 500 ducks are up for adoption, looking for their forever home after an animal services group rescued them from an illegal sanctuary. Officials in California say the ducks there were crowded and malnourished. The shelter says it's waiving all of its adoption fees. And out of our Southern Bureau, a lost gem recovered after 20 years in a radio station's closet in Texas. Take a look, an acoustic guitar signed by Taylor Swift years ago. The station's now auctioning it off. Highest bid, $7 grand so far. Proceeds from the auction will go to a local hospital. Also tonight, 2 pilots could be facing an investigation after making some noise over the radio. I don't know, what do you call it? Well, I'm just going to let you listen. Listen to this. Meow. Meow.
You guys, you need to be professional pilots.
Meow, 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 meow.
This is why you're still flying RJ.
Okay, so they're meowing, they're barking. Air traffic control having to remind them to be professional. When we asked the FAA about this, they said they investigate all situations where pilots may have violated any regulation. Let's bring in Tom Costello. First of all, lot of thoughts here. I'm not going to give my takes, but let's just say, number one, RJ means what? Regional jets?
Regional jet.
That was like a dig then, right? The air traffic controller is basically saying your antics are why you're not hitting the big leagues.
That's right.
It's sort of like weird and funny, but also, is it not kind of dangerous, too, to be tying up the traffic with this?
Listen, I'll give you my opinion. I think it's outrageous. I think it's juvenile, a bunch of 12-year-olds. I mean, up there on a radio. By the way, they were on frequency 121.50. That's the Guard emergency channel. You're supposed to have it on all the time, right? And only on it, only talking when you have an emergency. Apparently, this kind of, I'll say it, juvenile, stupid behavior has been going on for more than 20 years, in which pilots out over the ocean usually, for some reason, are getting into this meow, meow, bark, bark thing. And it may have some connection to a movie 20 years ago that I don't even know. But professional pilots find it outrageous.
Well, that's so interesting. So I was going to ask, like, why the meowing and the barking? Is it like a thing in the pilot community? Maybe, kind of?
Everybody I've talked to about this say they don't get it. It's dumb, it's stupid, and it is disrespectful. Reagan Airspace, we just lost 67 people last year in a crash at Reagan. And, of course, communication or the trouble communicating was determined to be one of the factors, not the deciding factor. Now, the question is, who was it? And I asked the FAA, I've asked pilots, is there any way to triangulate this?
Yeah.
Can you go back and figure out who was actually speaking? And the answer is, we don't think so. By the way, there's a rule. Here's the Delta. Delta is saying that we continue to investigate. We cannot authenticate any details of the exchange, including whether a Delta or Delta Connection regional flight may have been involved, but we expect pilots will always conduct themselves professionally. There is a sterile cockpit rule.
What does that mean?
It is essentially the rule of all aviation. Below 10,000 feet, you must always keep it extremely and solely professional. In other words, if you're in the cockpit and you guys haven't climbed up yet, or even if you're at 7,500, you don't talk about what you're going to have for dinner tonight. It is only about the performance of the aircraft and your jobs. So I think it's fair to say that if you're on the radio barking and meowing at whatever altitude, that would be perceived as really, inappropriate and in violation of the sterile cockpit rule. But one of the FAA guys I talked to today said, if we find out who did it, what rule can we really cite? If they're above 10,000 feet and they're messing around on the radio, it may really end up being, if they can determine who it was, the airlines who take action against their pilots.
Tom Costello, man, it's something new every day. Thank you. I appreciate you walking
That's from the Department of Dumb. I'm just saying.
Tom Costello, ladies and gentlemen, right here on News Now. Thank you, pal.
All right.
Still ahead for us tonight, the calls for answers from the family of an American influencer after she was found dead in Tanzania. We've got this disturbing story after the break. family of an American online influencer tonight questioning the circumstances around her death in Tanzania, with the sister of Ashley Robinson telling NBC News that Ashley was happy and celebrating both her birthday and engagement on the trip before police say she died by suicide after what they're calling a misunderstanding with her fiancé. According to hotel staff, the pair had to be moved into separate rooms after some kind of dispute. Police have not accused the fiancé of any wrongdoing, but they say they're holding him for questioning and have suspended the passport of his until they get the autopsy results. George Solis is following this. What else do we know about a situation where there seem to be a lot of questions at the moment?
Yeah, Hallie, and a lot of questions indeed. And that's sort of where we pick up right here. In our last conversation with the family, who is declining interviews, they are awaiting the results of that autopsy. And as you mentioned, they don't necessarily believe the narrative that they have been told so far, that their loved one took their life. So what are they saying right now? Well, they've told us that they have been trying to contact the authorities in Tanzania, and so far they say they have not been able to get any information from them, telling us that most of the information that they received actually came from the hotel itself. So they have been reaching out to the NBC, they have been reaching out to officials, and they are even considering going down there themselves to see if they can get more information firsthand. Now, in a statement that the family released, they said that nothing about this loss feels real. One moment she was celebrating life, going on to say they have many questions and they are placing their trust in the officials and they are working closely with them to seek clarity and answers. And Hallie, I did speak briefly to the younger sister of Ashley Robinson, who says she was planning a life with this individual. And again, no one's been charged in this case, but they were disappointed they didn't hear from him sooner. You know, she said this was the guy that she had planned to spend the rest of her life with. She was even talking about starting a family with this individual. And it should note that we have reached out to her fiance multiple times as well. We have not heard back. And again, at this hour, at this juncture, there really just appear to be more questions than answers, Hallie.
George Solis, thank you very much for staying on top of that one. We appreciate it. Of course, if you or somebody you know is in crisis, there is help with the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Text HOME to 741-741. We'll be right back. To a big and kind of surprising pivot in the business world that has some people kind of confused. Allbirds, you know, they make shoes. They're revealing today that they are running away from the sneaker business to get into AI. They closed all their stores in this country earlier this year, and they're going to open up a bunch of data centers. So no more shoes, just AI. Wall Street loves it. Look at Allbirds stock. The shares are up like 500% today. I want to bring in Chief Business Editor of People Inc., Caleb Silver. Why are they doing this? Like, I get that it's been a tough couple of years for Allbirds, but this isn't sneakers and you're getting into apparel, right? This is just such a huge shift. What's the play?
Yeah, it's a little cuckoo, and that was just sitting there. But this company has decided it wants out of the apparel business and is pivoting to AI, where it intends to buy what they call high-end AI servers and then provide access to companies where there's sort of latency or not enough service in the future. So think of it like an EV charging station for AI. Completely sold its portfolio of its shoes, its manufacturing process, and even its name to another company, American Exchange Group, that has other brands like Aerosols, and is now making this pivot, trying to raise $50 million to do so, to get into this business.
But why? I mean, like, what's in it for them? Is this just going to make them more money? Like, were shoes not profitable, and they think with AI booming that is?
Well, yeah, and just think this company was once valued at over $4 billion. As of yesterday, for this announcement, Hallie, it was a $21 million company in terms of market cap. So the apparel business has not been very friendly to it. It was at one point one of the tech bros' favorite shoes out there, with the eucalyptus and the merino wool, sustainable, eco-friendly shoes. They were also doing buy one, get one free for a period of time. It had its heyday back in 2016. That's when it was sort of hit its big shoe. 2021, the company was valued when it went public at over $4 billion. So its fortunes have changed, and now it's turning to the future. In the future, it thinks is going to be renting AI capacity.
Is this replicable? In other words, if there are other businesses out there that are struggling at this moment, is this something where others might look at this and be like, well, Allbirds did it, I can too? Or is it pretty unique to the way that Allbirds has set up its system?
It's unique only in the fact that Allbirds is already a public company and does have some sort of a track record and is able, it thinks, to raise money to be able to make this business pivot. But even if it does, $50 million pretty much gets you nowhere in the AI server world when you're competing with CloudWeave, when you're competing with companies at scale like Amazon and Meta. That said, it feels like there might be extra capacity that it can pick up. So you might see other companies make this pivot. We saw this with crypto. We saw this with the cannabis phase. We saw this back in the dot-com bubble when companies just slapped the dot-com or now an AI onto their name. This is what it's trying to do, but it's actually trying to make a real go of it in this business.
What if you like Allbirds shoes? Can you still buy them, or is this it?
Absolutely. They're going to still be available through the American Exchange Group. They bought the brand, they bought the shoes, they bought the manufacturing process. So if you like them, you can still get them.
All right. Caleb Silver, so interesting. Thank you for that. Appreciate you. And that does it for us for this hour. We've got a lot more coverage picking up right now. We are coming on the air with millions of people under severe weather threats tonight. Hail, wind after devastating tornadoes hit the Midwest, but there's a heat wave on the way. We are live in Kansas ahead of those storms. Plus, breaking in just the last couple of hours, a jury says the company you got to go through to get almost kind of any ticket to stuff you like, concerts, shows, etc., has been operating as an illegal monopoly. So, is this the end of Live Nation and Ticketmaster together? And what does it mean for the price you pay for the shows you like to see? Plus, another hot streak for the stock market. The new record highs today as Wall Street shrugs off the war with Iran. Then we're getting more into that breaking news from just an hour ago. A judge ruling parts of Camp Mystic must stay closed after that deadly flooding there. What it means for the investigation into that camp in Texas. Plus, the Grinch behind a huge Santa con in New York. Why the FBI is accusing the organizer of this huge bar crawl pre-Christmas of ripping off tons of people and stealing the holiday for victims. That's coming up a little bit later in the show. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and we come on the air tonight with nearly 50 million people under this severe storm threat. It's stretching across a huge part of the country, Texas to New England. It's hail, it's strong wind, it's the potential for tornadoes, and it's a dangerous heat wave for nearly half the country. Super early in the season for now. Let's start with what we're seeing in Iowa. Chunks of hail already coming down. They're actually already under a thunderstorm watch there. On the roads, look at Wisconsin here. People are like, well, how am I supposed to get into my car? These cars trapped in flooding, basically, water up to the headlights and the windows in some cases. Look, too, at these funnel clouds that have developed. Night number 2 of these reported tornadoes from Iowa to Kansas. You've got coast-to-coast problems, too, with the aftermath. Down power lines, houses torn to shreds, a trailer flipped on its side, trees ripped out. We've got team coverage tonight. Bill Cairns standing by with the forecast. But I want to start with Shaquille Brewster, who's in Kansas for us tonight. What's it like on the ground, Shaq?
Well, Hallie, I think you see some of the devastation and destruction behind me. This is the power of the tornadoes that we saw on Monday night. You see the camper completely turned over back there. The storage containers just look like a pile of metal. And then look around here. You just see the debris. This entire structure just completely gone. And, you know, the thing is right now we are under a tornado watch, which essentially means the conditions would make it that a tornado is possible. We're safe. There's a little bit of rain right now. But just imagine what a severe thunderstorm could do if this stuff starts flying around. And that's why you have folks doing what they can to clean stuff up. But I'll tell you, a lot of conversations I've been having with folks here, Hallie, they're still very positive despite the destruction and devastation that you're seeing here. I want you to listen to one of the exchanges I had earlier this afternoon.
Now my camper is upside down right over here.
That's it right there?
Right there, totally destroyed. It'll get hauled out of here and I'll buy another one. I mean, it's replaceable, you know, family's not.
Yeah, that sentiment is something that I've heard over and over again, despite the material loss that people have suffered with here, their storage units and other areas that we've been, their actual homes. They still are relieved that there was no death, that there were no serious injuries reported, at least with this outbreak of tornadoes, as we watch yet another round of severe weather moving through the Midwest, Hallie.
Shaq Brewster live for us there in Kansas. Shaq, thank you. Let me bring in Bill Cairns now, because, Bill, this heat wave is going to be intense, too, right? We don't usually see it this hot this early in the year.
Yeah, highly unusual. Philadelphia, by the way, if you want, I'll just throw this stat out there.
Please.
This is the earliest that they've hit 90 degrees since 1977. So we're almost going back like 50 years since they've been, this warm this early in the year. So yes, it's not just you if you're on the East Coast. This is unusual. So let's take you into the latest on the severe weather. We now have a tornado watch that extends up through the Quad Cities, down through Kansas City, Springfield, Missouri, all the way down to the eastern half of Oklahoma. We haven't had any confirmed tornadoes yet. We do have a tornado warning that is active. The storm has just crossed Interstate 35 in Iowa here. This is south of Des Moines. And we're going to take this, towards the Chariton area over about the next half hour or so. We'll keep an eye on this and any other new storms. This is radar indicated. In other words, the radar is seeing that the storm is spinning and it could produce a tornado at any time. In Cleveland, it's just a mess. We've had numerous thunderstorms going through. A lot of large hail reported, quarter to, silver dollar size hail, and that's going to continue. Into the Kansas City area, big thunderstorm just to the south of town and just to the south of the town. Another one has just popped up here, too. These are not tornadoes, but this is damaging hail is likely, and we've already heard about some smashed windows with some of those storms, too. We're going to skip tomorrow because tomorrow's isolated severe storms. But then as we go into Friday, the same areas I just talked about, you're under an even higher risk of severe weather. We think there's going to be a better chance of tornadoes and maybe even a few strong tornadoes. So keep an eye on your plans that you have after school and after work, Kansas City all the way to southern Wisconsin. And the other story that's going to be developing in the next 2 days is this flooding. We've had a lot of snow melting, and especially northern portions of the Great Lakes. And then we've had this incredible heat. And now we're adding all these rounds of thunderstorms and heavy rain. And we've got a lot of flooding problems out there, a lot of river problems, levees we're going to be worried about. There's one dam that they're concerned with. So that's going to be something to watch in the days ahead, especially Wisconsin and Michigan. And finally, as far as your record highs go, numerous areas today got into the 90s, including, New York City, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Raleigh, and tomorrow should be similar. Philadelphia 91, Norfolk 91, Charlottesville. When Charlottesville up in the mountains gets to the 90, it's hot. But it will end eventually. New York City only in the 60s, Hallie, by the time we get through the weekend.
Bill Cairns, you're watching it all for us. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, as it definitely is going to get a little bit sticky. Got some breaking news tonight with a huge ruling against Live Nation. A federal judge has found they're basically an illegal monopoly. Federal jury, I should say. This jury found that Live Nation was overcharging fans via Ticketmaster who bought tickets to stuff they wanted to see in a decision that could have a huge impact on any live entertainment, almost, that you want. Concerts, shows, etc. It could maybe even mean the breakup of Live Nation and Ticketmaster, which, of course, it owns. Now, Live Nation has denied ever acting as a monopoly. They haven't put out a statement on this ruling just yet. But an attorney for the states that have sued told our team outside court it's a great day for antitrust law. It's a great day for consumers. It's more expensive than it's ever been to buy a ticket for a concert. $135 2024, according to Pollstar. That's up, of course, from 1996. We've got team coverage tonight. Our legal analyst, Misty Maris, is standing by to break down what this means from a legal perspective. But I want to start with Hallie Canal. How did the jury get to this verdict? Because they ultimately determined, right, that Live Nation overcharged fans by about $1.72. Help us understand that.
Yeah, so this was a very complicated, a very dense trial. Took place over the course of around 5 weeks. Jury began deliberating on Friday, so roughly 4 full days of deliberations. There were a lot of notes passed back and forth, so the jury really took their time here. But in terms of how they got to this verdict, I keep going back to the state's arguments here, and they really focused in on those internal Slack messages, the back and forth we heard from management. Executives used phrases like how the company has a moat around the castle when it comes to their control over live events. We even heard from the CEO of Live Nation, who described the business as a flywheel. And as complicated as antitrust is, when you boil down and really show how unsympathetic the staff was, the executives were, how they really kind of knew what they were doing within the context of this space and how much control and power they had, I think to a jury that signals, all right, something's unfair, something needs to change. And that's ultimately how we got to where we are today. So we'll see what those remedies are, what they come in, and what the judge ultimately determines to be those punishments down the line. And remember, we still have that DOJ settlement on the table, which will go into effect. This is separate and additional, whatever we see in terms of those damages.
Some of the internal messages at Live Nation came into play, right?
Yes, and you heard from staff. They mocked customers. They called them so stupid, bragged about robbing them blind. I'm sure they're going to be monitoring their Slack messages a lot more moving forward. But in terms of actual changes that we could see from Live Nation, some of my sources have told me that they might actually want to continue to lower fees even below the 15% cap that we saw from that DOJ settlement in order to show the courts and prove to the courts that they are trying here, that they are working with the system to make sure that they are operating within a competitive environment. So we could see this go back and forth. They're likely to appeal. This could go on for a lot of time. I want to make that very clear. And because of that, it's very likely that customers are not going to see any immediate changes. It could lead to more competition over time. But the longer this gets holed up in the courts, the harder it's going to be to see those changes at the drop of a hat.
Hallie Canal, thank you very much. Misty Maris, let me bring you in. You heard Hallie mention the potential remedies, a.k.a. punishments that Live Nation could face. Isn't one of them having a spin-off Ticketmaster? That's on the table.
Absolutely, because this is all about this company operating as a monopoly. So the question is, what remedy actually opens up the doors for competition? That's going to be what the judge will have to decide. It could be as extreme of forcing Live Nation to divest, to separate Live Nation and Ticketmaster. It could be something in between. It could be divesting some of those amphitheaters that we heard about. It could be something like changing corporate policies of how they function in the spaces of venues, ticketing, and promotions, which were the cornerstones of the case. And it could also, Hallie, be monetary damages. So it could be any of those combinations, separated companies being the most extreme and certainly the most impactful for Live Nation and Ticketmaster moving forward.
It's also possible this could end up in another settlement down the line, right?
Absolutely, because keep in mind we have the DOJ settlement, which had certain requirements for Live Nation and Ticketmaster. That has to be approved by a court. Some states signed on to that. These states did not. So this particular verdict, this case will be tied up in appeals, as Hallie has said. So does that mean that you see Live Nation and Ticketmaster coming back to the table to see if there's more that they can add to those changes that would help quell this so that these issues are not tied up in appeals for years and years to come? Is there some resolution that could happen? This is a civil case, so there's always the opportunity that settlement is on the table somewhere between when the judge imposes these court-ordered remedies and when it would actually come into effect, which is likely a significant period of time down the line.
Misty Maris, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Super interesting. Also tonight, in just the last couple of hours, as we've seen the markets close, we've seen the markets going gangbusters, right? Let me show you how it went down a little bit. But look at the S&P, look at the NASDAQ, the highest they've ever been. Those are all-time highs for both of those indices. Remember, it was lows just a couple of weeks ago in the midst of the war against Iran. It's a big turn, especially as that war keeps energy prices up. Gas is still around $4 a gallon. Let me bring in Christine Romans, who's joining us now. 401ks, I know financial experts say just sit and let them ride. However, if there's a data checkup, maybe today's the day. This is a big deal, right? Why this rally now?
You know, look, we all say stay invested through the headlines, through the drama, through the chaos. Just stay invested because companies learn to adapt. Companies figure out whatever these headwinds are, and Wall Street reflects how well these companies are making money. You've got the stock market back up here to record highs in two of the major indices, in the S&P and the NASDAQ. They're higher for the year. So that's good news for anybody who stayed invested. So that's amazing. Look at the rebound for the S&P 500 from those March 30 lows. That's even more significant than the rebound that it had after. Remember Liberation Day last year, those big tariffs, all the markets tanked, and then the president sort of took his foot off the gas, and then they rallied and roared back. This is even more dramatic than that. Split screen, though, Hallie, are gas prices. Gas prices are still 38% higher than they were when the war began with Iran. And I talked to Kevin Hassett about yesterday. I asked him, like, what is your message to the American people who may see the stock market recovering, but they're paying more at the pump every single week when they fill up? This is what he told me.
We're very sensitive to the fact that gas prices are higher. They've gone from 3-ish to 4-ish on average in the country, and that's something that we're all in on addressing by doing things like releasing the strategic reserve and increasing production in Venezuela and in the U.S. and so on.
It's really interesting. So you have, again, this split screen where you have a stock market that seems to be doing well, that has recovered. So Wall Street doing better than I think Main Street would say that they feel here.
Christine Romans covering all things economy, always covering the news. And today, in the news, making headlines of your own. We are so excited for you because guess what? Christine's taken over 2 hours right here on NBC News Now, gang, 10 a.m. Eastern. Christine, we are so excited for you. Cannot wait until the news show starts. Do you have a name yet? What is it?
No, I was going to call it News Nerd Now, but I was told that wouldn't be appropriate.
Wait, but I love that. I'm so thrilled for you. We're so excited. You're such a big part of the family here on Now.
Thank you.
We're thrilled for you. So sending lots of love. Thanks, Christine. Appreciate you. You heard Christine. We're so happy for her. Talk about, of course, all things related to, you know, the war, the economy, the impact that the war is having on the economy here at home. But let's get a check of where things stand overseas because the White House is waving off some reports that the president wants to extend the ceasefire as the U.S. tries to work towards some kind of a peace deal with Iran. And it's actually not really an extension. The president, to the contrary, wants this whole thing wrapped up by the time King Charles visits the United States, according to a conversation he had with our partners at Sky News. That's April 27th, so just about 2 weeks from now. That's when the king is coming to visit. Right now, the focus on all things in the region appears to be on this blockade of Iranian ports in the Strait of Hormuz. And a U.S. official tells NBC News the Navy has turned around 10 ships in the last 48 hours. Here's the warning that CENTCOM's putting out to boats who they think are trying to break the blockade.
Turn around and prepare to be boarded. If you do not comply with this blockade, we will use force. The whole of the United States Navy is ready to force compliance.
Let me bring in Keir Simmons, who's in Saudi Arabia for us. And a couple of questions for you here, Keir. First, you've got this Pakistani delegation that has arrived in Tehran. Should we be reading that into a sign that peace talks, you know, are picking back up as the president had predicted early this week?
Well, I think what we should be reading is that there are a lot of diplomatic efforts, Hallie, to try to get to the point where these peace talks can happen again. And there was the meeting and has been the meeting, as you say, in Tehran. We've also seen the Pakistani here in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. And there are plans for meetings in Turkey in the coming days. So there are multiple things happening all at once. And then there is a question really hanging over all of this right now, I think, and that is whether there is going to be a ceasefire agreement over Lebanon. Now, I am told that that was a huge issue in the talks last weekend for the Iranians and actually also for the Pakistanis. And I'm not sure whether there can be peace talks between the US and Iran until there is an announcement, assuming there is an announcement, that there's a ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon, and with Hezbollah in that mix, of course. So there are lots of moving parts, as we like to say. But on the positive side, I do think that there is a eagerness, a desire, both in Tehran and in Washington, to get this done. And actually, you hear President Trump saying it all the time. I'll just say one other thing before you ask me one other question, which is this. We keep hearing President Trump saying, any moment now we're going to do a deal, any moment now we're going to have talks. The Iranians aren't signaling like that. And I think that's because, very likely, the Iranians think that the more that they just kind of slow walk this a little bit, the more leverage they've got. And frankly, what President Trump is doing is signaling that he wants this, he wants a deal. He wants to do this, which, of course, in negotiations is a signal that you're ready to compromise.
There's also this piece of this, and you and I have talked about the sort of nexus to this before, which is what's happening between Israel and Lebanon, right? So what's the status there?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, that's one of the big issues tonight, I think. And the problem is, from the Israeli perspective, that Hezbollah has been a threat to them for so long, and why I'm speaking, you know, the way that you might hear someone from the Israeli government express it. Why would we agree to a ceasefire that allows Hezbollah to reconstitute itself? Now, what we have heard is the Lebanese government and the Americans, the Trump administration, say, well, we want a future for Lebanon that does not have Hezbollah dictating things. But that's a very tense issue in Lebanon. It's complex. And it's not a foregone conclusion that that part of the puzzle is going to be solved. And as so much in the Middle East, it's a game of chess, even, kind of three-dimensional chess. And if you can't solve that bit, then can you solve the Strait of Hormuz? Can you solve the problem with the missiles and drones? All of these other things kind of are waiting for that.
Keir Simmons, live for us there in Riyadh. Keir, we're glad to have you in the region. There's a lot to watch. There's a lot that's uncertain, and we appreciate you navigating us through it. Thank you. Back here at home, you've got President Trump perhaps giving new life to that classic old saw that if at first you don't succeed at attacking the Pope, try again. The president's reigniting, yes, his papal fight, again slamming Pope Leo overnight by defending the war with Iran, again saying the regime can't have nuclear weapons. Remember the first round of the President v. Pope? Some Republicans on Capitol Hill didn't love it. This time around, the consensus seems to be, listen, at least from the Senate Majority Leader, everybody's just got to stay in their own lanes.
I'd stay focused on the administration, on the economic issues, the pocketbook issues that I think most Americans care about, and let the church be the church.
So remember, the Pope, if you're a Catholic, is infallible on matters of doctrine. Somebody who Catholics see as unable to sin, whose job it is to speak on morality. But Vice President Vance, who converted to Catholicism in 2019, says he thinks the Pope may need to lock in on some of the more godly matters.
In the same way that it's important for the Vice President of the United States to be careful when I talk about matters of public policy, I think it's very, very important for the Pope to be careful when he talks about matters of theology.
Okay, so the Pope didn't respond directly to this. He didn't talk about President Trump. He didn't talk about Vice President Vance, but in Algeria telling followers that, quote, God's heart is torn apart by wars, violence, injustice, and lies, but our Father's heart is not with the wicked, the arrogant, or the proud. Let me bring in Gabe Gutierrez, who's live for us at the White House. It is an interesting moment for this move by President Trump with, like, everything else going on for Vice President Vance here. What are you hearing about how the White House sees this?
Well, Hallie, the White House does not want to talk about this. Every time you bring it up, they just refer to whatever the president posted on social media. The vice president, though, as you said, he was asked about this specifically yesterday during that event in Georgia. And you bring up an interesting point, a strange, odd position to be in, to be appearing to lecture the Pope on how to speak about matters of theology. Here's a little bit more about what the vice president said.
I like that the Pope is an advocate for peace. I think that's certainly one of his roles. On the other hand, how can you say that God is never on the side of those who wield the sword? Was God on the side of the Americans who liberated France from the Nazis?
And Hallie, look, as you said, Republicans on Capitol Hill really trying to weigh how to respond to this. Earlier this week, we had Speaker Mike Johnson saying that he wanted, that he had asked President Trump to take down that AI-generated picture of President Trump depicted as Jesus. But today, Mike Johnson came back and said, look, if the Pope wants to wade into political waters, he should expect a political response. And then you heard Senate Majority Leader John Thune in the clip you played, and then also later telling reporters that he does think that the leaders of the Catholic Church and the leaders of the United States, the leader of the United States, should stay in their own lane. So certainly a bit of an odd calibration to try and figure out how to speak about this just months ahead of the midterms. But President Trump not backing down. He is doubling down, really, in any criticism of the Pope when he anticipates or when he perceives that the Pope is directly taking him on. Alex.
Gabe Gutierrez. Very interesting indeed on the North Lawn. Gabe, thank you very much. Let's get to some breaking news that's come into us in maybe the last 90 minutes, not even. A judge in Texas ruling that parts of Camp Mystic hit by those devastating floods last summer must stay closed, saying the camp cannot fix any buildings or alter any of the land until the investigation is complete. It's part of a lawsuit brought by the parents of an 8-year-old camper whose body still has not been found. Their attorneys say the camp was not prepared for flooding and made mistakes that cost lives.
If we had taken one person who was not a counselor and gotten on a walkie-talkie or a loudspeaker at any point between 2:20 and 3:15 a.m. and said, we need to go to higher ground, go to specific cabins, and evacuate the counselors and campers, there were enough able-bodied people there to follow such an order. True?
Yes, sir.
Morgan Chesky has been following this story. Morgan, what do we know about the judge's ruling in this one?
Hallie, she's issued this temporary restraining order, this TRO, which effectively seals off the Guadalupe portion of Camp Mystic. That is where those 27 young girls were when they were washed away. It's preventing Camp Mystic from moving any land, from renovating, altering any of the buildings there until some investigations run their course. When that will be finished, TBD. But essentially, it allows Camp Mystic to continue operating at the Cypress Lake location of their camp, which is on higher ground, was not impacted by the July 4th flood. But it's allowing investigators to continue to go in and gather evidence on that side of the camp that was overwhelmingly submerged when the Guadalupe River exploded in the early morning hours on the 4th of July. And again, this is coming after 3 days of fraught, emotional testimony from multiple members of the Eastland family. Admitting at various points, Hallie, that they weren't aware of certain weather warnings, admitting that they did not place weather radios in the cabins. And I want you to hear how the flood was described by Katie Eastland, who is the wife of Britt Eastland, one of the sons of Dick, who was washed away when those waters rose.
I've lived at camp a good while now, and we've seen some floods. This wasn't a flood. This was an inland tsunami. I couldn't wrap my brain around why the girls had ever left their cabin.
And as it stands right now, Cypress Lake is the part of the camp that is on high ground. You're looking at images from the Guadalupe portion here, Hallie. We don't know when this TRO will be lifted. We do know that there is another hearing, all part of this lawsuit filed by the family of Seal Stewart, that 8-year-old camper who has not yet been recovered. Hallie.
Do we know about anything that you mentioned, the Cypress Lake portion of the campground? Any extra? What is the camp basically doing differently if they do end up reopening this summer to campers?
Yeah, it's really interesting here because they've submitted an application to the state of Texas asking for their permission to operate as a camp. That has yet to be approved here, Hallie. The first day of camp is, I believe, the last day of May. So we're now in this window of about 6 weeks where more than 800 girls have had families that have put down deposits to go to Camp Mystic Cypress Lake. However, without that permit, without that stamp from the state, they cannot legally operate. So all eyes will be going to that state agency, the Texas Department of State Health Services, to see if they grant Camp Mystic permission for that Cypress Lake location to open this summer. If not, there's going to be some drastic changes that have to happen sooner than later here. Hallie.
Morgan Chesky, thank you very much for tracking all those developments, especially late today. Appreciate it. Also tonight, in some brand new, very rare public comments, we are hearing from the new owner of Jeffrey Epstein's ranch in New Mexico, laying out how he sees its future. That ranch used to be called Zorro. It's where multiple survivors say Epstein assaulted them. And the new owner is a real estate developer named Don Huffines. He, by the way, is running on the Republican ticket to serve as Texas comptroller. He wants to turn the ranch, he has said publicly, about 7,500 acres, into a Christian retreat. And he sat down with the Texas Tribune just this week.
Have the authorities asked to visit the ranch? Would you make it available to them if they did?
Of course. Of course we would. Absolutely, 100%, and I have. No one ever asked to come out there. We asked people to come out. They assured me that they didn't need to. The Attorney General's office is out there and done their investigations, and I wasn't there, but it's my understanding they haven't found anything.
Let me bring in Ryan Nobles, who's joining us now. This is a really interesting response from Don Huffines there, and I want to explain to people why that is. We know, based on our reporting, that the state of New Mexico just recently, this spring, Don Huffines did give them permission to go out and search the ranch. He said, you heard him there, and he said, yes, they searched. He said they assured me they didn't need to search. Who's the they? Is that the feds? Do you have any indication that the federal Department of Justice told him they didn't need to go out and search what used to be Zorro?
Well, we know that the main entity that's been investigating the Zorro Ranch has been the New Mexico Department of Justice. They created this Truth Commission. They have a $2.5 million budget to expressly investigate this part of the Epstein investigation. Yeah. We have no evidence that the federal Department of Justice has made any effort to go to the Zorro Ranch to investigate any of the claims that have been made by some of the accusers and the survivors of that situation. You know, the Zorro Ranch is one of these interesting aspects of the Epstein investigation, which you know, Hallie.
Yeah.
The conspiracy theories run wild about what potentially happened there. There are some people that suggest perhaps there could be bodies buried somewhere on the ranch, that could be some sort of
tip turned over to the FBI about exactly that
right.
came in unsubstantiated, obviously.
Right, and there's also claims that there was some sort of various illicit activities that were taking place there. Is there any evidence of those illicit activities? So it is not clear, and Huffine, it seems to kind of just dismiss this as not a real thing. We don't know who's been there, what they found, what they've looked for, and whether or not all that work is done.
No timeline on we just had the New Mexico Attorney General on this show yesterday, actually. We asked him about this, and he said that we don't really have a timeline at this point. They're working on the investigation. They hope that the DOJ turns over some of the records they're looking for, those unredacted documents. Also interesting here, you know, the road leading into the ranch has been renamed. It's now called San Rafael, right? Named after the Saint of Healing. Huffines has talked about this because he wants to turn this property into a Christian retreat.
Right.
He said, he posted online that he wants this place of darkness to become a place of light. I think that in my conversations with survivors, with those related to the investigations, I think there's some skepticism that it could ever be a place of healing. But Huffine seems pretty committed to this, he said today, when he talked to the Tribune.
Yeah, right. And he is bound and determined to turn this into something positive and something good. Listen to how he referred to it today during this talk.
We decided to buy it and turn a place of darkness into a place of light. I was converting that ranch into a Christian retreat, and we had a lot of ideas to do it and how to do it, and so that's ongoing, and that's what I'm going to do.
So exactly how he plans to manifest this dream he has for it, how the survivors are going to be impacted by that, how it affects the investigation, Hallie, I think is important. Are there things that need to be preserved? He's not really answered any of those questions with any degree of specificity.
Ryan Nobles, thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. Much more ahead tonight, including the man suspected of stealing Christmas with SantaCon, the serious fraud allegations he's facing tonight, plus why the FAA is trying to figure out how this fell through the roof of a California house. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, the husband of the missing American woman in the Bahamas has left that country. Brian Hooker's lawyer tells NBC he's going back to the States for a family emergency. He was released from police custody after being questioned in connection to his wife's disappearance. He says Lynette fell overboard while they were on a boat over Easter weekend. His attorney says that Brian Hooker will return to the Bahamas, but didn't give a specific date. Number 2, 2 suspects in that attempted bombing outside Gracie Mansion have pleaded not guilty today. Prosecutors, remember, had accused the men of throwing an explosive during protests outside the mayor's home in New York. The device never went off. Both men face multiple charges, including supporting a terrorist organization. They'll be back in court in June. Number 3, Ye, the artist formerly known as Kanye West, says he's postponing an upcoming show in France after leaders there threatened to ban Ye from entering the country, saying he's not welcomed. This comes right after West, we reported on the show, was supposed to headline this big music festival over in the UK until that was canceled and the British government banned Ye over his history of anti-Semitic comments. West says he understands that it takes time to understand his wishes to make amends for his past remarks. Number 4, a family in California wants some answers after this chunk of ice crashed through the roof of their house. Look at this. It's a big hole in the ceiling right there. It's in the living room. The owners think it might have come from a plane. Turns out they may be right. They looked up the flight data. The FAA tells us they're investigating. Number 5, Air New Zealand. If you ever wanted to fly in a bunk bed in the sky, you might get your shot. It's being called the Sky Nest. It's specifically for coach passengers on those long-haul flights. Air New Zealand is now the first company in the world to stack up these pods in the Dreamliners. The company says it's available $500 extra bucks if you want one. So think about it. It's going to be some long flights. We are also learning tonight that New York City's beloved SantaCon may actually be a total con after the FBI arrested its organizer for fraud today. You know SantaCon. We cover it like every year. All these people in Santa outfits go bar crawling through the streets of New York dressed like Santa to raise money for charity. But here's what federal prosecutors say the organizer actually spent a bunch of the money on instead of charity. Renovations to his lake house, tickets to shows, nice vacations, nice meals, a nice car, all while claiming he got no compensation for running this charity event. The FBI says he allegedly, this is their words, stole Christmas from tens of thousands of victims. They say he deprived local charities of more than $1 million. He faces up to 20 years in prison if convicted. Tom Winter is joining us now. I mean, the feds didn't say, the word Grinch, but they certainly implied it. How did this person get away with this for so long? It's not like SantaCon is new to the scene.
Well, some members in law enforcement have used the word Grinch today, Hallie. And yes, this has been going on for some time. Cracks in the SantaCon facade, if you will, of the charitable portion of this program. And you're going to continue to look at the images on screen of the event. Those started to appear approximately 2.5 years ago when a local publication here in New York, Gothamist, started to ask some questions about a couple of holding companies where this money apparently went to. And it's not an insignificant amount. We can take a look at it now. The total amount that's been raised, $2.7 in total, $2 million in ticket sales, and then as well as charitable donations that come from some of the bars that are involved in this. It is effectively a bar crawl, Hallie. What was that spent toward? Well, according to the indictment, the allegations are $124,000 toward the lease of a luxury Manhattan apartments, over $10,000 a month on average, $100,000 investment into a boutique resort in Costa Rica that was founded by a personal friend, a $3,000 birthday dinner at a Michelin-starred restaurant in New York City, and then that lake house you referenced, $365,000 in donations. Now, Hallie, this is certainly getting a lot of attention because it involves Christmas, it involves charity. Let's be totally transparent today. There is another side of SantaCon, which are the acts that take place on that day, and the costumes. It's been referred to as Halloween in December to describe fully some of the costumes that would appear that day would threaten my employment. And, of course, it's a nightmare for parents who have to avoid swaths of the city so we don't have to answer questions of data. How come there's so many Santa Clauses on the sidewalk, and why are so many of them throwing up into the sewers? So that's a bit of the side note of SantaCon. It's been a bit of a scourge. Some people have had their issues with it, to say the least. And most people did not know that this is a charitable event. I've gotten lots of feedback on social media today, people that had no idea this involved charity at all. They just thought it was a great way to spend time with friends on a Saturday afternoon before Christmas.
It's just so interesting. Tom Winter, thanks for being all over everything, because it's all your beat. Appreciate you. Still ahead for us tonight, the hours-long push to try to save a group of trapped hikers. We've got that full video. Plus, the warning to the folks heard making animal noises over emergency air traffic radio here in D.C. We've got that. The meowing. There's your spoiler in just a moment. Tonight, disturbing pictures out of Turkey after a second school shooting there in just 2 days left 9 people dead and more than a dozen hurt. You see some of the scene here, students jumping out of the windows from this middle school, just horrific. We know that the attacker, according to officials, was 14 and killed 1 teacher and 8 other students before dying by suicide, according to officials. Here's some of what it looked like outside of school, parents running around, ambulances trying to drive through crowds. It's just 24 hours after a different young shooter opened fire at another school in that area, killing 16 people. This is very rare in Turkey. There has never been one this deadly, let alone 2 in 1 week. Raf Sanchez is covering this for us tonight. What else do we know from officials about this?
So, Hallie, one of the big questions in Turkey is how did today's shooter get those guns? Turkey, like most countries outside the United States, pretty strict gun control rules. We are now learning that the shooter's father is a former police officer, and it does appear that the shooter took weapons from his collection of firearms. Authorities are saying this massacre was carried out using 5 guns and 7 magazines, so a pretty formidable arsenal there. This 14 years old, going into the school, opening fire on his classmates, as you said, killing 8 students and 1 teacher. This is officially the worst school massacre in Turkish history. And the big question, Hallie, is there any connection between yesterday's shooting, which took place about 130 miles away, about 3 hours drive? You can see those 2 areas on your screen there. At this point, authorities are not saying that they have detected any connection between these 2 shooters. But as we know, in the U.S., there can sometimes be copycat attacks that follow on from previous ones. In both cases, the killers appear to have shot themselves over the course of carrying out these attacks. Today's massacre, according to the Turkish Interior Ministry, was a personal attack, they are saying. It does not appear to have been an act of terrorism. And you can just see the terror there on your screen, kids jumping out of second-story windows, trying to get away as those gunshots were ringing out at that middle school in southern Turkey. Hallie.
Raf Sanchez, thank you very much. NBC News covers hundreds of stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going on in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our Western Bureau, take a look here. First responders rescuing climbers stuck on a mountain in Colorado. Officials say they received reports the group had to stop in the middle of the climb. After losing their route when it got too dark, they apparently didn't have headlamps to help them out when the night fell. The rescue operation took nearly 4 hours, but the good news is everybody's okay. Also out of our Western Bureau, nearly 500 ducks are up for adoption, looking for their forever home after an animal services group rescued them from an illegal sanctuary. Officials in California say the ducks there were crowded and malnourished. The shelter says it's waiving all of its adoption fees. And out of our Southern Bureau, a lost gem recovered after 20 years in a radio station's closet in Texas. Take a look, an acoustic guitar signed by Taylor Swift years ago. The station's now auctioning it off. Highest bid, $7 grand so far. Proceeds from the auction will go to a local hospital. Also tonight, 2 pilots could be facing an investigation after making some noise over the radio. I don't know, what do you call it? Well, I'm just going to let you listen. Listen to this. Meow. Meow.
You guys, you need to be professional pilots.
Meow, 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 meow.
This is why you're still flying RJ.
Okay, so they're meowing, they're barking. Air traffic control having to remind them to be professional. When we asked the FAA about this, they said they investigate all situations where pilots may have violated any regulation. Let's bring in Tom Costello. First of all, lot of thoughts here. I'm not going to give my takes, but let's just say, number one, RJ means what? Regional jets?
Regional jet.
That was like a dig then, right? The air traffic controller is basically saying your antics are why you're not hitting the big leagues.
That's right.
It's sort of like weird and funny, but also, is it not kind of dangerous, too, to be tying up the traffic with this?
Listen, I'll give you my opinion. I think it's outrageous. I think it's juvenile, a bunch of 12-year-olds. I mean, up there on a radio. By the way, they were on frequency 121.50. That's the Guard emergency channel. You're supposed to have it on all the time, right? And only on it, only talking when you have an emergency. Apparently, this kind of, I'll say it, juvenile, stupid behavior has been going on for more than 20 years, in which pilots out over the ocean usually, for some reason, are getting into this meow, meow, bark, bark thing. And it may have some connection to a movie 20 years ago that I don't even know. But professional pilots find it outrageous.
Well, that's so interesting. So I was going to ask, like, why the meowing and the barking? Is it like a thing in the pilot community? Maybe kind of?
Everybody I've talked to about this say they don't get it. It's dumb, it's stupid, and it is disrespectful. Reagan Airspace, we just lost 67 people last year in a crash at Reagan. And, of course, communication or the trouble communicating was determined to be one of the factors, not the deciding factor. Now, the question is, who was it? And I asked the FAA, I've asked pilots, is there any way to triangulate this?
Yeah.
Can you go back and figure out who was actually speaking? And the answer is, we don't think so. By the way, there's a rule. Here's the Delta. Delta is saying that we continue to investigate. We cannot authenticate any details of the exchange, including whether a Delta or Delta Connection regional flight may have been involved, but we expect pilots will always conduct themselves professionally. There is a sterile cockpit rule.
What does that mean?
It is essentially the rule of all aviation. Below 10,000 feet, you must always keep it extremely and solely professional. In other words, if you're in the cockpit and you guys haven't climbed up yet, or even if you're at 7,500, you don't talk about what you're going to have for dinner tonight. It is only about the performance of the aircraft and your jobs. So I think it's fair to say that if you're on the radio barking and meowing at whatever altitude, that would be perceived as really, inappropriate and in violation of the sterile cockpit rule. But one of the FAA guys I talked to today said, You know, if we find out who did it, what rule can we really cite? If they're above 10,000 feet and they're messing around on the radio, it may really end up being, if they can determine who it was, the airlines who take action against their pilots.
Tom Costello, man, it's something new every day. Thank you. I appreciate you walking
That's
us through
from the
all that.
Department of Dumb. I'm just saying.
Tom Costello, ladies and gentlemen, right here on News Now. Thank you, pal.
All right.
Still ahead for us tonight, the calls for answers from the family of an American influencer after she was found dead in Tanzania. We've got this disturbing story after the break. The family of an American online influencer tonight questioning the circumstances around her death in Tanzania, with the sister of Ashley Robinson telling NBC News that Ashley was happy and celebrating both her birthday and engagement on the trip before police say she died by suicide after what they're calling a misunderstanding with her fiancé. According to hotel staff, the pair had to be moved into separate rooms after some kind of dispute. Police have not accused the fiancé of any wrongdoing, but they say they're holding him for questioning and have suspended the passport of his until they get the autopsy results. George Solis is following this. What else do we know about a situation where there seem to be a lot of questions at the moment?
Yeah, Hallie, and a lot of questions indeed. And that's sort of where we pick up right here. In our last conversation with the family, who is declining interviews, they are awaiting the results of that autopsy. And as you mentioned, they don't necessarily believe the narrative that they have been told so far, that their loved one took their life. So what are they saying right now? Well, they've told us that they have been trying to contact the authorities in Tanzania, and so far they say they have not been able to get any information from them, telling us that most of the information that they received actually came from the hotel itself. So they have been reaching out to the embassy, they have been reaching out to officials, and they are even considering going down there themselves to see if they can get more information firsthand. Now, in a statement that the family released, they said that nothing about this loss feels real. One moment she was celebrating life, going on to say they have many questions and they are placing their trust in the officials and they are working closely with them to seek clarity and answers. And Hallie, I did speak briefly to the younger sister of Ashley Robinson, who says she was planning a life with this individual. And again, no one's been charged in this case, but they were disappointed that they didn't hear from him sooner. You know, she said this was the guy that she had planned to spend the rest of her life with. She was even talking about starting a family with this individual. And it should note that we have reached out to her fiance multiple times as well. We have not heard back. And again, at this hour, at this juncture, there really just appear to be more questions than answers, Hallie.
George Solis, thank you very much for staying on top of that one. We appreciate it. Of course, if you or somebody you know is in crisis, there is help with the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Text HOME to 741-741. We'll be right back. To a big and kind of surprising pivot in the business world that has some people kind of confused. Allbirds, you know, they make shoes. They're revealing today that they are running away from the sneaker business to get into AI. They closed all their stores in this country earlier this year, and they're going to open up a bunch of data centers. So no more shoes, just AI. Wall Street loves it. Look at Allbirds stock. The shares are up like 500% today. I'm going to bring in Chief Business Editor of People Inc., Caleb Silver. Why are they doing this? Like, I get that it's been a tough couple of years for Allbirds, but this isn't sneakers and you're getting into apparel, right? This is just such a huge shift. What's the play?
Yeah, it's a little cuckoo, and that was just sitting there. But this company has decided it wants out of the apparel business and is pivoting to AI, where it intends to buy what they call high-end AI servers and then provide access to companies where there's sort of latency or not enough service in the future. So think of it like an EV charging station for AI. Completely sold its portfolio of its shoes, its manufacturing process, and even its name to another company, American Exchange Group, that has other brands like Aerosols, and is now making this pivot, trying to raise $50 million to do so to get into this business.
But why? I mean, like, what's in it for them? Is this just going to make them more money? Like, were shoes not profitable, and they think with AI booming that is?
Well, yeah, and just think this company was once valued at over $4 billion. As of yesterday, before this announcement, Hallie, it was a $21 million company in terms of market cap. So the apparel business has not been very friendly to it. It was at one point one of the tech bros' favorite shoes out there with the eucalyptus and the merino wool, sustainable, eco-friendly shoes. They were also doing buy one, get one free for a period of time. It had its heyday back in 2016. That's when it was sort of hit its big shoe. 2021, the company was valued when it went public at over $4 billion. So its fortunes have changed, and now it's turning to the future. And the future, it thinks, is going to be renting AI capacity.
Is this replicable? In other words, if there are other businesses out there that are struggling at this moment, is this something where others might look at this and be like, well, Allbirds did it, I can too? Or is it pretty unique to the way that Allbirds has set up its system?
It's unique only in the fact that Allbirds is already a public company and does have some sort of a track record and is able, it thinks, to raise money to be able to make this business pivot. But even if it does, $50 million pretty much gets you nowhere in the AI server world when you're competing with CloudWeave, when you're competing with companies at scale like Amazon and Meta. That said, it feels like there might be extra capacity that it can pick up. So you might see other companies make this pivot. We saw this with crypto. We saw this with the cannabis phase. We saw this back in the dot-com bubble when companies just slapped the dot-com or now an AI to their name. This is what it's trying to do, but it's actually trying to make a real go of it in this business.
What if you like Allbirds shoes? Can you still buy them, or is this it?
Absolutely. They're going to still be available through the American Exchange Group. They bought the brand, they bought the shoes, they bought the manufacturing process. So if you like them, you can still get them.
All right. Caleb Silver, so interesting. Thank you for that. Appreciate you. And that does it for us for this hour. We've got a lot more coverage picking up right now.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.